17-year-old Charlotte Witvoet has spent much of her life struggling with mental illness, and now, as a writer and mental health advocate, she is committed to sharing her coping skills and story with other young adults. In this short bonus episode, you'll hear Charlotte read a letter she wrote to parents of teenagers who may be facing similar mental health challenges, as well as an original spoken word poem. Please note that this episode includes mentions of suicidal ideation, anxiety, and depression. If you are in distress, please know that help is available. In the U.S., you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK. That's 800-273-8255. In Canada, you can call 1-833-456-4566.
Life with a teenager with mental illness is hard. I will be the first to admit that. As a 17-year-old who was first suicidal at the age of 11, most of my life has been lived in crisis mode for me and my entire family. The road to recovery has not been an easy path. I'm still on it, but there are definitely things my parents and I have learned along the way that have helped us work through it as a team. Reflecting on my own experiences and the experiences my peers have shared, here are 3 things I think every parent should keep in mind when helping their child get to the road of recovery. 1. Your mentally ill teenager is more than their diagnosis. As someone who struggles with mental illness, sometimes it's hard to remember this and put it into practice. The classes I'm failing are because my ADHD makes it too hard to focus. I don't have friends my age because I'm too anxious to talk to my peers, and so on and so on and so on. But you have to remember that your mentally ill teenager is also going through their normal life teenager stages right now. High school is hard, and we're all just starting to figure out who we are and who we want to be. And while mental illness tends to exacerbate all these things, it doesn't mean your child is dysfunctional or won't be successful out in the real world. At the end of the day, breakups or bullying or whatever else are hard for anyone. It doesn't mean your kid is destined for failure and won't conquer their challenges. 2, your mentally ill teenager has the same needs and desires as anyone else their age. It's easy to feel like your child needs to be protected because they have mental illness, or to feel like somehow they need special help to be functional and successful. And while yes, it's important that you both work together and advocate for their needs, your teenager still wants the same things as everyone else. If they're failing all their classes, it's not because they don't want to be successful. And if they can't pick up the phone to order a pizza, it's not because they don't want to. And most importantly, teenagers want autonomy and independence. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I have a therapist or psychiatrist appointment and a family member jumps in first to say how I've been doing, what's been going on, and how they feel about things. Or when I ask to go out at 10 p.m. on a Friday night and I'm confronted with the question, is that really the best idea? Because my anxiety has been through the roof all week. Sure, sometimes I'm going to fumble weirdly over my words or go out and realize it was a mistake or make friends that support all of my unhealthy behaviors, but it's important for me to make my own mistakes. I don't need to be protected more than any other teen. Give me your opinions and input on my toxic relationships, how to approach an issue with my therapist, or how to get my grades up. But at the end of the day, at some point, you have to let me make my own mistakes. I need to learn to be in charge of my own decisions, even when I screw it up. Isn't that how teenagers learn? 3, you can't fix your child. This is maybe the hardest one to learn and accept when all you want to do is help your teen be happy. But the truth is, teenagers don't like to listen. Give them resources, patience, and all of the support you would want from someone you love. From my own experience, when I was taken to doctor after doctor and I was still depressed, anxious, and suicidal, I started to feel like something was wrong with me. Like I was broken and no one could figure out how to fix it. It took me years to realize that I was the one who had to put work into my healing. Truthfully, I had to hit my own rock bottom to recover. I'm not saying let your teenager do whatever they want until they figure it out, but if you're doing all the right things and it doesn't seem like life is getting out of crisis mode, it's not personal. You're still a wonderful parent and it's okay to let go and accept that they'll have to choose happiness for themselves. Parenting is hard work, and nobody gets it quite right all the time. Learning to be an adult and navigating through the teenage years is hard too. And of course, we don't get it quite right all the time. But your child will figure it out, and you will too. Give each other the benefit of the doubt and kindness, but also give each other the room to make mistakes and learn to do better. Dear parents, so your child just got their diagnosis of depression or anxiety or bipolar, or maybe you've been dealing with it for years and somehow their mental illness is still coming up with new ways to baffle you and put you into survival mode the second you thought you might be safe. You spent years teaching your kids manners and boundaries and respect and above all else to be themselves, no matter what anyone else thought of it, and then comes the diagnosis. And all of a sudden your child is this empty shell of the person you used to know, sprouting in all the opposite directions of how you wanted them to grow, so what do? The truth is, you taught your child to be themselves, and maybe mental illness is messy and complicated and a battle every day, but it's a part of who they are. Their life path to blooming into the beautiful flower you had always dreamed up in your mind. I'm not defined by my mental illness, but it shapes me every day. It's a part of who I am just as much as my empathy or my passion. It's a part of me that I love. Do you know why? Because it's my story, my messy, screwed up, beautiful, complicated story. And because I wouldn't know myself so intimately without it. I wouldn't be able to love people the way I love or have passion the way I do or be as happy as I am without those chapters of jumbled words and skipped pages and messy fonts. It wouldn't be my story. In the worst times, I couldn't see my mental illness as a story. I saw it as a defect, a failure, a death sentence. But one day, I promise, those pages won't seem so jumbled anymore, and the skipped chapters won't matter, and you'll be grateful that you were a part of that story. Their story. That no longer ends with periods or question marks or new diagnoses, but instead with semicolons and exclamation points and hope for what the next chapter might bring.
Thank you, Charlotte, for your vulnerability and willingness to share your experience and powerful poetry. You can hear more from Charlotte in our last episode, a re-release of our Supporting Teen Mental Health During COVID-19 webinar, where Charlotte served as moderator for our conversation with several guest experts. Additional resources on this topic are linked in our show notes. We also encourage you to check out Charlotte's first novel, Paint My Body Red, which can be found on Amazon.